They are recording. Welcome, welcome. We are Streetsboro City Schools. My name is Andreas Johansson. I'm the Director of Operations. This is ATC 2020. With me is Dan Stitzel. We have a few other Streetsboro folks there. Missy Payton's here. She just did a presentation. Dan is excited to do a presentation on EdPuzzle 101. Send all your questions to the chat. We will assist you there. We are offering, of course, a certificate of attendance. We'll send you that link momentarily. And we are hosting all of these videos once processed. We got download, upload, get to YouTube and all that good stuff. Once processed, we'll host them on a dedicated website for ATC. So we would love it if you take it and share it out and say, so if this session is really great at Puzzle and you want to share it with others, feel free to do so. Dan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Dan's ready. So I'm going to hand it over to Dan. Again, any questions, throw them over to us in the chat and we will do our best to answer there. Dan, take it away.
All right. Well, as Andrea said, I'm Dan Stitzel. So for those of you that I don't know that aren't in our district, I am our district technology coach. So before that, I did teach in the middle school setting for 10 years, language arts, and a couple of years with social studies as well. So EdPuzzle, the tool I'm going to talk about here in just a few minutes, was one that I used in my classroom all the time. It was by far one of my favorite tools, and it's now a tool that I use all the time with staff that I work with. When we went remote in the springtime, we were in the middle of a Google cohort. So in our district, we offer Google cohorts where staff members can get trained on the G Suite for Education. We did it 1 hour before school or 1 hour after school, depending on their building schedule, we would meet. And we were midway through our spring cohort when we all went into quarantine, into lockdown. So we actually finished up the cohort using EdPuzzle. So I would sit in my basement with my kids running around upstairs. So I was always like muting my mic halfway through the recordings. But I would sit in my basement and I would record a screencast of using different Google tools. So let's just say Google Forms, for example, if you watched Andreas's session earlier. So I would go through different, adding questions, whatever the elements that I would have talked to these, coworkers of mine in person, I would screen record that with my voice. And then where EdPuzzle came into play is I would actually upload those videos to EdPuzzle. And the beauty of EdPuzzle is you can embed questions. So I could embed questions, I could embed voiceovers, I could stop and just have, a link for someone to get external information if they needed it. And I reached out to those cohort members and I asked them, I said, hey, did you find this beneficial? And they were like, yes, it was great. With all the things going on, we could do it at our own time, our own schedule. So then this summer, we actually ended up inviting all of our staff to a virtual cohort. We had about 40 plus people sign up and I did the entire thing via EdPuzzle. So I recorded screencasts and then all the lessons were put into EdPuzzle. And I'm going to show you, you'll see here in the next few minutes that just the beauty of EdPuzzle is you get immediate feedback, you get data, you can comment right in that platform. It integrates with Google Classroom perfectly. So it's super easy to post assignments. And it's just I always say there's some tools that people are always like, would you pay for EdPuzzle? And EdPuzzle is one of those tools that I would, out of my own pocket, pay for just because there is so much value in it. However, I'm going to show you, you don't have to. There is enough storage that they give you for free that you probably wouldn't need to, but it is one of those tools that I would be willing to. It's so great. So I'm going to go through EdPuzzle, just kind of giving you a 101, just here's what EdPuzzle is, here's how you use it. And I'll show you some of the bells, the whistles, and then I'll talk at the end. They actually have their own PD certifications. So I am technically an EdPuzzle certified coach, but there's different levels. There's EdPuzzle level 1, level 2, coach, and I'll show you the page. There are just an abundance of PDs that you can do for free through EdPuzzle that will show you different ways of using the tool beyond what you're going to see today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And the bit.ly for this session will be posted to the website that Andreas was talking about before. Whoops, hold on. Why isn't it? Oh, let me pull it up. Hold on.
While Dan gets that ready, we did build a dedicated website this morning for all of the ATC videos. And so we're currently sort of getting a hold of them from Zoom and then uploading to YouTube. And so you'll be able to distribute those to whoever may want to.
So as I'm getting this set up, I apologize. My window that had my EdPuzzle in it did not want to share. So I'm gonna just open it up a different route through my drive. No big deal. So the bit.ly here for this slideshow is down in the bottom. So you will see that there. If you want to go ahead while I'm getting this set up, if you want to write that down somewhere, you have that option, but you definitely don't need to. Like Andrea said, we'll have that for you. Are we all seeing the EdPuzzle screen now? I apologize. Not sure why that was happening, but there you go.
Yeah, it looks good, Dan.
All right, perfect. So again, quick introduction, district technology coach. Here's my contact information. I am on Twitter, not as much as I used to be, but I'm on Twitter a lot. My handle is @Mr. Stitzel, so I like to retweet things. I'll put random things up. A lot of times if I create something for a member or help someone that I work with, I'll put it on Twitter too, because we're all in this together, right? And then my email address is there as well. So what is EdPuzzle? So I kind of mentioned it, but EdPuzzle is a super, and this is their website. That's why there's like a ton of words there, but I will kind of, TLDR this for you. But EdPuzzle, basically what it is you will take a video. It could be a YouTube video, a Khan Academy video, crash course. There's all these different video elements that are actually on the website, and you embed questions right into it. So you're actually, as the person who's creating it, you are going to put formative little assessment pieces throughout the video. And the beautiful aspect of it is you can set it as the teacher that students cannot go further into the video until they answer those questions. So if I have a YouTube video and it's a 4-minute video, and I don't want my students to just be able to toggle through it and say they completed it, they watched it. I can put it into EdPuzzle and add those little, they call them quizzes, but little formative assessments, little pieces throughout the video where it's going to stop. The student's going to answer a question, or they're going to listen to my voiceover, and then they can hit submit and move on. What's even more beautiful, and I'll show you, is you do get a feedback as a teacher. There's a gradebook element that shows you the percentage of completion, so how much the students actually completed, and that pertains more if you turn off that forced, if you turn it off where they can't skip, you could still see how much they paid attention. You'll see how long they spent. So some students, might submit something in 1 minute, and it should have taken them a lot longer than that. You can talk to them individually and say, hey, this is a 6-minute video. Somehow you finished this assignment in 1 minute. It gives you that feedback, and it grades it for you. So it will grade all the multiple choice questions. You will have to grade short answer just like you would in a Google form. But it keeps track of all that information for you, and you can export that information to a spreadsheet for your grades and for your records. So a couple of reasons why EdPuzzle. Well, it connects right to Google Classroom. So we're a Google district in Streetsboro. So anything that connects to Google, and especially Google Classroom, is already at the top of my list, because I can just import my Google Classroom of students right into EdPuzzle. I don't have to do like any manual adding of emails. It connects, and then I can assign right through EdPuzzle, and it will go right to my Google Classroom. So that in itself is amazing. There's a ton of curriculum that's already created for you. So EdPuzzle is a community. As you create something, it goes towards that community. So what you create, others might be able to use, and what others create, you might be able to use. So it's a really excellent example of don't reinvent the wheel. I will tell you, as we start to look, you're always going to check the wheel that someone else created, because sometimes the wheel that someone created might have an error in the answer. For example, today I was just playing around with EdPuzzle, and the video I was watching was over odds and even numbers. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not a math teacher, but I'm pretty sure I know that 2 and 4 are even numbers. And I selected that, and it said my answer was incorrect. So you're always going to want to double check what people have set as the correct answers, or you can take questions out that don't pertain to you. But the wheel itself, the framework of that wheel is already there for you, which is really nice. You can crop videos, so you can actually use EdPuzzle as almost an editing program as well. So you can chop some parts out in the beginning, chop some parts out in the end, which is nice. And then the really important part of EdPuzzle, the reason people use it, is because you can add questions, which they call quizzes, voiceovers, audio notes. You embed those right into a video. It's an excellent, excellent tool. And then again, like I said, it's free. Now there are paid versions, and I'll show you in a second here the difference between the basic and the pro. but the free suffices. I mean, right now I use the free. When I was in the classroom and I had 7 different classes and we were adding an abundance of videos, I paid I paid for it for each year, but the free, there's workarounds as well. You can delete things out, things like that. So here you go. The basic plan is you get 20, you have access to those 5 million videos, like I said, that are already there. So all those videos that have already been created, you have access to them. You can import your own videos as well and create your own interactive video. So if I have a screencast that I created, I can put it into EdPuzzle and I can put my questions right in there like I did for my Google cohorts. Again, adding those questions, those notes. The thing with Basic is you get 20 videos of storage. So you can have in your content, and they call it my content in EdPuzzle, and I'm going to show you how to access my content. At any given time, you can have 20 videos. Once you hit the 20 videos that you've created or you've used that someone else created, if you want to add more, you have to delete out. So that's where people like the Pro, because they don't want to delete things out. They like to keep what they already had, going. But I guess what I said, the workaround earlier would just be if you're going to stick with the basic, whenever you want to add something new, once you're at that 20 point, you would have to delete one out, and it won't even let you. It doesn't even get you the option to assign or anything until you have space. You can look at the Pro. Okay, the Pro version, again, the big difference is the amount of storage that you have. And I guess you also have priority for customer support too, which is really nice. But you do get all those other benefits as well. So you'll see the basic, you get a lot with it, and it's free. The Pro version, you get a couple in just that unlimited storage is the major difference there. Okay, so if you go to edpuzzle.com, I'm going to be kind of going through different parts of this. So if you wanted to follow along, you could go to edpuzzle.com. If you want to just watch my presentation and kind of see the elements before you play around with it later, totally fine. But it's just edpuzzle.com to get there. It is not part of the G Suite, so you're not going to find it in the Waffle Grid. It's its own website, but like I said, it does connect to Google, to your Google Classroom. You can sign in using your Google account, and your students will, especially if you use Google Classroom. But it's not part of the G Suite. If you don't use Google, so if your district is not a Google district, you can create EdPuzzle accounts without Google. So it's not going to connect to Google Classroom, obviously, because you're not using Google Classroom, but your students will still be in a class in EdPuzzle that you create. And I'm going to show you that as well. So adding classes, and I'm going to go through these and then I'll show you these different methods. The first method, like I said, is integrating with Google Classroom. So it connects right to Google Classroom. It will pull your students. If you have a new student join your class, let's say you create you integrate it into EdPuzzle in September, and then in October you have 2 new students. You'll just press a little refresh button in EdPuzzle, and those 2 new students will be thrown right into your class. You don't have to worry about typing their name in. It automatically connects with it, which is really, really nice. And then, like I said, you also can just create a class right in EdPuzzle that's not part of a Google Classroom. And again, very similar. You would still go to My Classes. You would add a new class. Rather than clicking Google Classroom, you would just choose Create a New Class, and it's going to walk you through it. Now, if you use Google Classroom, your students will be invited. You can put it onto your Google Classroom as an invitation. They just click it. They're automatically a part of it. So when you create an assignment, they click the assignment. They're already in. They don't have to do anything. If you create the class in EdPuzzle, they'll join using a link or a code. So they'll join using a code that you can share via a link or an email, just like they would if they were joining into like a Kahoot or a Quizlet. That code will then put them in part of that class. So I'm going to show you that here. So I'm in EdPuzzle, and I'm going to sign in using Google. For me, we're a Google district. It's edpuzzle.com. Are we all seeing edpuzzle.com?
Not yet.
You're not seeing it. Sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to front. Let me stop and I'll get back in there. All right, my windows are acting all crazy here. Let's go here. All right. So I'm going to log in using EdPuzzle. And when I get to EdPuzzle, we're seeing it now, Andreas?
Yep.
Perfect. Now, I already have an EdPuzzle account. So when I get into EdPuzzle, this is the dashboard that you're going to see. So I logged in using Google. You could create an EdPuzzle account, or you can log in using Google. It's going to take you here. When you sign up, you give it a little information. You talk about the school that you work in, or the district you're in, the subjects you teach. Now, I taught language arts for 10 years. So when I signed up initially, language arts was a subject that I said that I taught. So when I get into EdPuzzle, it shows me things that are trending in that subject area. So it's just kind of cool. Like it kind of like, hey, you might want to use this in your class. It just kind of gives you some suggestions. To set up those classes though. So if I go to my classes over here, you'll see I already have a couple classes that are set up. So these were those Google cohorts I was talking about. This was a summer Google cohort. But I want to add a new class. So I'm going to click add new class here, and you'll see those two options that I spoke of. If I click Google Classroom, what it's going to do is it's going to pull up every Google Classroom that I am a teacher. So every Google Classroom that I have control over who's allowed to be part of that Google Classroom. So I'm going to click right here because I create a little sample class for this. I click import class, and then if I go to students, now all the students that are in that class are going to be listed there. Now I only used one student for my example, but if you have 45 students in your class, all 45 are going to show up here. At any point, if a new student joins into your class, if you click import students, it does a little thinking there, and then they will be a part of that class. So you don't have to, again, go back and manually add their email addresses in. You just click import students, and it will update for you. If you're not using Google, you don't use Google Classroom, but you still want to add a class, you will go to add new class, and you go to create new class, and then this is where you'll give information. So this would be sample. I would choose the classic class type, and the reason you would do that is because it's going to essentially, if you choose Google Classroom, it automatically does that classic. But this is where your students will sign in, they'll become part of that class. You can collect their data of what, their answers to the different questions and things like that. So the classic is just the route you would want to take. And you're going to click create class. And now you see the same thing. You see a very similar dashboard. The difference is right here, this is now my class code. So when my students, if I log out here, just to show you what they would do, if I go to log in and I click I'm a student, and I sign in with Google, it's gonna, well, I'm already part of that class. It's gonna ask me to put that join code in. And once I put that join code in as the student, I am now part of that class. So again, it's just like if they were using, so if I click, join class, put that code in, I would become part of that. So I would become part of that class. So now when my teacher adds assignments, my teacher, puts videos in that they want me to complete, I'm going to get that information. It'll be emailed to me, or if I log into my EdPuzzle account, it's going to be there waiting for me. And I'll show you in this presentation right here, I kind of gave you a little view of what the student would see. So when I assign work, my students, when they log in, this is the screen they will see. They will see where it says no due date or due date. So depending on if I give it a due date or I don't, and then right below it's going to be that assignment. So now that my students are in that class and I start pushing those assignments out to them, when they log in, they're going to see a list of all the assignments that I have given them. Okay. Let me log back in here and I'll show you.
Dan, EdPuzzle is one of these tools that we are launching for Streetsboro, right? Premium version?
Yep.
Correct.
Yes. So it is one of those tools that, when Andreas and I were talking and kind of about tools that would be beneficial for in-person, hybrid, or remote, EdPuzzle was way at the top of my list because I've used it in person with students. I've used it in a hybrid setting now, and I've definitely used it remote as well. So it is one of those tools that can be used no matter what your school situation is, because you as the teacher are still going to get the exact same amount of data. The students are going to get the exact lesson. So it's a great tool. All right, so I've got my class. So again, got my students in here. He signed up. Now I want to start assigning assignments. I want to start giving them work. I want to give them videos to watch, and I want to see what they can do. So what I'm going to do is go back to the main EdPuzzle page here, and I've got some options over here. I've got some options of, it's going to search the channels of EdPuzzle. I can search right in YouTube. I can search Khan Academy, National Geographic. I mean, you see all these different options here that have videos that have already been loaded. So let's say I want to add something from Khan Academy. Now I can search in Khan Academy. So let's do it over writing, see what comes up. And I see something from Khan Academy about argumentative writing. I'm like, perfect. I want my students to learn some skills about argumentative writing. I click on that video, and the video itself is going to come up. So I, as the teacher, before I embed any questions, before I put anything into it, I can watch that video to make sure it's exactly what I want. So just be like me on YouTube right now, watching the video. I like it. I think it's great. So the big thing now is I'm going to click edit, because when I click edit, now I can add in questions. I can add in stopping points throughout that video where my students have to stop. They have to reflect on their learning. They have to show their understanding. And then, like I said, they actually have to submit it before they can move on to the next section of that video. So if I click edit, it's going to bring up this screen now. So I can cut it. So let's say I only, I watched this video, and really all that's pertaining to
kind of close it all up together.
Would be the first like 10 minutes.
Activity, okay? I would call it.
I can drag that.
Because
now I can add that cut. Okay, so I'm like, this is the portion I want my students to see. They don't need to watch the whole video right now. Now I want to add some questions in. Okay, so I'm going to go to questions here, and you'll see that I've got a couple different question styles. There's multiple choice questions. There's open-ended questions, so that would be like extended response or short answer. And then I could also just add a note. So if I don't want my students to show understanding at a point, but I want to emphasize something that was talked about, I can add a note, and my students would stop, the video would stop, they would see that note that I create, they would read it, and then they would tell EdPuzzle, yep, I'm ready to move on, and the video will move forward. So let's say I'm at this point right here, and we're just going to guess that we know what it's talking about. And I want to add a question in. I can click multiple choice question here and just literally create any question. So who is the main character? And I can choose different characters that are in there. I can add more responses, okay? And then I can choose and you have to choose the right or wrong answers. So I can give it more than one correct answer. So if Andreas and Dan are somehow both the main character, I could choose that. Or, you could mark things off that are incorrect. Just something to note, it does default to be the correct answer is going to be your first response, but you obviously don't want the correct answer to always be the first response. So that would be something you might want to change up as you're adding questions throughout the video. When I'm done, I'm like, okay, I like this. I like where this question is. I click save. And now, if we play this back, if I press play,
is home to more than 3,000 active coral groups.
We're going in.
All right, a lot of
as
people
they
in
get
England
closer to
is
that
home
question,
to more than 3,000 active coral groups.
Down here.
All right, a lot of people in the United States and England sing
when it
choirs.
gets there, you'll notice the
choir
video
singing
will
is a popular
stop.
pastime.
The video is actually going to.
Well, they've already established that choir.
They're going to
this
answer
data
the
right
question,
here is kind of
and then
telling
I'll
us
show
that
you
choir singing
that they
is
have to then move on. So it stops. They click the answer. Now, as the teacher, I'm seeing the correct answer. They obviously won't. They answer it, they click continue, and then they can move on.
This sentence.
If you don't want to add a question, well, actually, let's look at the other question styles first. Sorry. So open-ended question, very straightforward. Right here in this text box, you're going to type in the question. So what are your feelings at this point? Whatever it might be. Click save. Now that question is going to be thrown in at that point. Okay. When they see it, they have to answer it in a short answer or, extended response style. They click continue, they can move on. Now let's say I'm further in the text
before singing, especially,
and I want to add in a note. So rather than a question, if I click note, I can just make a little, look at 1:35 in the video and, whatever it might be. So now instead of me being there in person saying, hey, why don't you go back to this part in the lesson and look at it, I can give them that note. And when they get to that part in the video, it's going to stop and they're going to see, look back at 135 in the video, and it's going to prompt them to do it. They can toggle back to 135 in the video, and then when they're done, they press continue. So that note section there is just almost as if the teacher was stopping in the middle of the lesson, giving more information, so that the students, learn from that extra information that they would need. You can add additional questions as well. So let's say I have that note there, but I also want a question based on my note. Down here, I have that option. I can add another multiple choice. I can add in a multiple choice, that extended response, that open-ended, or I could even add another note. So you have that option. You can kind of layer. You can always go back and edit. So if you see a spelling error or that question, you want to reword it, press a little pencil. You have the option to edit that. Right here, you see a little microphone. If I click that, and I give permission to EdPuzzle to use the microphone, I can actually record in a voice note, which is kind of nice. If I want to do a voiceover, so they're watching a video, but I want to kind of narrate that video, I have that option as well. So if you click voiceover here, so rather than questions, you click voiceover, you'll get that option, which is kind of nice. You can record that voiceover in, so you can kind of almost narrate your video rather than the narration that's already there, which is really cool. And then again, that cut is the option where you can shorten that video if you want to. You can rename this. So if I wanted to, give this a different name, I'd click that pencil there, and it would just be, example for now, whatever it is. But you have that option. Okay. Then you would save title. That's how you embed those questions. The big thing is, though, you need to press finish. So when you're done, you've added your questions in, you've added your voiceovers in, you need to make sure that you press finish, or that information isn't going to save. Unless they've done some update that I'm not aware of where it automatically saves, you want to make sure you press finish, just kind of as a safety net. So now you'll notice, here's my new video. If I press play, I've got
in that frame of mind, especially for relation.
These questions that are embedded. So when I push this out to my students, they not only see the same video that I saw to begin with, but now they have these little formative assessments or checking for understandings or voiceovers or notes that they have to stop, pay attention to.
Well, they've already established that choir. I mean, this data right here is kind of telling us that choir singing is a popular.
See, stop. They would answer it. They'd move on. Okay. Now you'll notice the skip option here. And I purposely did not put that in because I wanted to show you. You do have the option to skip things or rewatch, but when I create, so let's say, oh, you know what? I don't like this. I'm going to go back. If I add a question in, and I add a multiple choice question, what I can do is in the settings, then I can add it so that you can't skip. I can go back. For some reason, it's not showing up right here. Generally, it's setting right here. It will tell you that students can skip it, they can go forward, or they have to.
And that's just a standard convention. If
answer it right then and there. So.
Talking about doing something.
So you have that option. You have that option to make it so students can rewatch it, so students can move forward and go backward, that type of situation. What I want to show you, though, is there's so much content that's already created for you, which is really nice, so you don't have to necessarily always recreate the wheel. If you go to the popular channels and you click EdPuzzle, in here, you'll notice that a lot of these videos have little numbers next to them. That means that those videos already have questions created. And this is what I warned you about earlier. If you are going to use one of these videos, that's excellent, but make sure that you go through all these different questions here that have been added in and make sure that the correct answer that they have set is actually the correct answer. Make sure that the questions pertain to what you're actually teaching. So sometimes teachers will throw in things that are personal to their district. So if I have a teacher named, Mr. Johansson, I might put a question in that says, hey, if Mr. Johansson walks 10 miles here and blah, 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 then, you know, my students will know who that is. But if I'm using someone else's video and Mr. Johansson is not their teacher, it might be a little confusing for them. So that's something that you would want to make sure that you are aware of. And again, you can search right in here. So if I search right in the writing piece, it's going to pull up, you know, videos about writing, and I'll see all those videos that have questions or notes already there, or some that just are a video that don't have those questions. You'll notice some people add, like this one has 11 questions already added. So what you might do is open that and just go through all 11 and realize, you know what, these 5 are the only 5 I want, and you can just delete out those other ones. So let me show you that. So I've got this video here. It's got 11 questions. Now the video I showed you before did not have any questions, but we still had to go to edit. For this one, I'll click edit. And what I can do now is as I go through these questions, I can decide if I want to delete them out or if I want to edit them. So if, you know, the answer is incorrect, or if it does not pertain to my school or my students, I can delete it out, or I can click edit and I can make those modifications. It's not going to change the original person's. So don't think that if you click edit and delete things out, like that person's going to come back to use theirs and be like, oh my gosh, where did all my questions go? It doesn't manipulate theirs. You are editing a copy that you're making now to push out to your students. So you don't need to worry about that. But again, I can delete this one out. Let's say I don't like this question. I can delete it out, and it's not going to be there for when I assign it to my students.
I need my tea.
Okay, so I click finish. Notice how my assign button is light gray and I can't press on it. That's because I've hit my max of 20 videos. So if I want to eventually use this video to assign it, I'm going to go to EdPuzzle. I'm going to go to my content. So my content is where everything that you have edited, everything that you're going to use lives. So I'm in my content, and right now I'm at my 20. So let's say I'm like, I don't need this one anymore. If I click here and I delete it, you're going to see that video that I just was editing is now there. So now if I open it, I can assign it, because now I have the ability, I had the space, I had those 20 videos available that I can now assign to my students. So if I click assign, it's going to pull up all those classes that I have created. So you'll see the ones that are synced to Google Classroom, and you'll see the ones that are not. And I'm going to assign it to this class. I could assign it to more. I can assign it to all my classes at once. It doesn't matter. I can give it a start date. So if I want them to start right now, just make sure the time matches up, because sometimes the time is in the future, but you want to start right now. So make sure you're aware of that. And then you can throw a due date in there. So if I throw a due date, so this is due tomorrow, and I click save, this is where, I apologize, this is where you can prevent skipping. So I apologize, it's not in the question section. This is where, if you do not want your students to advance in the video, you would make sure that this is turned on. If you turn this off, your students can go through this video at any pace. They can go straight to the questions, answer them, go to the next question. They don't have to watch the video. So if you're using EdPuzzle for what I think is its really most powerful purpose of making sure the students watch the video, answer the question, you would want to make sure this prevent skipping is turned on. So I apologize, it's not in the question section, apology. This is where you would find that, okay? If I'm assigning this to a class that's in Google Classroom, you'll notice that this option now pops up as well. And if I turn this on, it's going to automatically post this assignment into my Google Classroom. I don't have to copy any links. I don't have to do any extra work. If I turn this on and I click assign, when my students get into Google Classroom, that assignment will be waiting for them based on when I have it as a start date and when it's due, which is really nice. And you can do that for multiple classes. So I've got, all these classes that are linked to Google Classroom. If I select all those classes, it's going to post to all those classes with that start date, that due date, which is really, really nice. If you want this to be a public, so this is like a video that maybe, I've heard of people using EdPuzzle kind of, especially right now, a lot of districts are doing virtual open houses, and they're doing virtual, like showing your classroom to the parents because they can't physically come into classrooms. You can make any EdPuzzle video a public link. So let's say you took a video of your classroom, and throughout the video, you stopped with like little notes. And it said, if you notice over here, each student has their own sanitized cubby. And over here is where the students will put their book bags, whatever it is. I can click public link, and I can copy this link and send it to and anybody can click on it and they can watch that EdPuzzle video and they can answer those questions. Now, because they're not attached to a class, I'm not going to be getting data from them. So I'm not going to know that Nick's dad got on and answered. It's not going to tell me every answer. But this is just a really quick way for me to send that public link out. Nick's dad can get on, he can open it, he can press play on the video. That video is going to stop when there's a point where the teacher needs to, leave a little note or a voiceover. Nick's dad can say continue when he's ready, and it will go on to the next section and then that next stopping point. Okay, so when I am ready to assign, I would click assign, and then now that's going to show up down here for the students. It's going to show, this is what I was talking about. It's going to show the progress of the student. So my student here, Tech Tapas, he signs on, he starts this video. I'm going to see this percentage grow. So as he's 10% into the video, it's going to say 10%. When it's 100% completed, this will be green and it will say 100%. I also get that information of, when it was last watched. So if he watches it today, it's going to have today's date. And then if he does go all the way through to turn it in, it's going to tell me that that assignment was turned in. If I'm using all multiple choice and notes, so the only grading that has to be done, there's no grading that I actually have to go back and do. His grade's going to automatically appear here because that multiple choice grades itself. If I have short answers in there and I actually have to go through and click, yes, this is the correct answer, or no, it's not. Once I'm done, that grade will appear here based on, that information that I just put in. If I forgot to link it to my Google Classroom, like I didn't press that little toggle that said post to Google Classroom, I can click share assignment here and I can grab that link and I can just post the link in Google Classroom. They're still just going to click on it like they would if I would have had EdPuzzle post it for me. And it's going to take them to the same place where they can see their assignments. They click that assignment and they can start. So if you forgot, because it happens, all the time, you click share assignment, you're good there. This export grades to LMS, that you would have to look in your district to see if EdPuzzle's exporting communicates with your LMS. I'm sorry, in Streetsboro, it does not. But if you have some type of LMS that does communicate, you're good there. You can always download the grades. So after your students, you have this whole list of students and you see all their work. If you click download grades, you can get a nice either PDF or you can get a spreadsheet version of it as well. And then you can always delete assignments out. Like we don't need this assignment. It was an error. I didn't need to post it. If I click delete assignment, it's gone. My students aren't going to see it. So again, big things here, the skipping. You can turn that on and off to prevent skipping. So when you create the assignment, you have that option, but throughout the assignment, you also have that option. So this would be like the difference of going teacher paced to student paced. So teacher paced is lesson, 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 question, lesson, 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 question, lesson, 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 question. Student paced is they can jump all around. They can go straight to the questions. They can watch a video and then go to the next question. It's totally up to them. One thing I will note, at any point, if a student they're part of a class, so it's not a public link. They accessed it through Google Classroom or they accessed it through that class that you created in EdPuzzle. If they X out, it's going to stop them there. And then when they get back in, they can pick up where they left off. So if the bell rings and they had one question left and they just shut their Chromebook really quick, when they get back tomorrow and they log into EdPuzzle, they can pick up where they left off. So that's a nice feature. And you as the teacher can grade throughout. So like, let's say they got 7 out of the 8 questions done and you're just waiting on that 8th question. You could check that those first 7 questions were answered correctly. And then when they come back the next day, they just have that one question or that night, whatever it might be. So that's assigning. So that's creating or using one that's already created. So you can start from scratch. You could upload your own video and you could add your own questions and your own voiceovers in. You can search for a video based on these popular channels and you could add questions in. You could search for a video that already has questions and just edit those questions and assign it. You have that option because again, EdPuzzle works as a community. That's what it's built on. You'll notice over here, I want to talk about this content section. So when I signed up for Streetsboro, or excuse me, for EdPuzzle, I was a teacher at Streetsboro Middle School. So now if I click this, it's going to show all the teachers that are also at Streetsboro Middle School that use EdPuzzle. So it's a really nice, quick collaboration. So like if I know my teaching partner, the other 8th grade language arts teacher, she created this phenomenal video in EdPuzzle. I can click this right here and I can search for her there, or I'll see that video because she created it. It's going to be in that Streetsboro Middle School content section. It's a really nice feature. My content, as I mentioned before, this is where all the videos that you edit or you've uploaded, this is where they live. So my content is where you can go through and you can see those videos. Again, I am not paying for the premium, so I have 20 videos that I am able to assign at this point. If I paid for more, I'd have that option, but now I can delete out and add in based on. This curriculum piece in the content section is awesome. So if I click curriculum, I can pick the grade level, or I guess I should say the grade band that I'm with the most. So let's say I'm trying to find some information for a high school teacher. If I click view content, now it goes to all the subjects. And I can filter right here by typing information in, but I can kind of scroll through and I'm like, okay, our PE and health teacher reached out to me and wants some interactive activities or EdPuzzle. So if I click PE and health, now it breaks it down even further. So I'm like, okay, they really wanted a lesson on, for physical education. If I click here, it breaks it down even further. And they're like, oh, it was for the badminton unit. So if I click badminton, now I have videos that have been uploaded that relate to that subject. So it literally filters, down to a point where like, you don't even have to worry about the specifics. You can just click, 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 click until you find that content. So again, that's the curriculum tab. And we'll do it now with elementary because I promise you elementary teachers use EdPuzzle as well. And I can do by grade level. So let's say I'm looking for a 1st grade lesson and I want it to be social studies. Now I can see content that has been loaded, that has been set with that curriculum expectation. This meets 1st grade social studies, standards or what students at that age learn in that subject. So that's another really cool way to find content that relates to your subject area. And you'll notice again, some of these do not have questions already created. Some do. Like this one has 4 questions / notes. So it might be 4 questions, it might be 4 notes, it might be 2 and 2. But again, you have the power to then go back and edit it, which is awesome. Back in that my content piece. So we went through the curriculum, which is awesome. It's community element, it's great. Streetsboro Middle School, yours would say something different if you don't work there. If I'm in my content, this is where I can add content of my own. So if I click add content, I can create a video, I can upload a video. Student projects, if I do this, what it does is it actually creates it so students are now the ones making the EdPuzzle video. So if I do a student project and I make this writing workshop, I can give them a goal and I can give them the instructions right here. The goal would be to complete a video about writing. Okay. I click save project. Now my students in that class, when they sign in, they're gonna have that waiting for them. And obviously the instructions I gave were pretty weak right here from the example, but the instructions might say, in EdPuzzle, find a video that relates to theme. Add 3 questions throughout the video, and then when they're done, they hit submit or they hit turn in, and then I see their videos they've created. So you can actually have students create them. We did this in language arts a lot in 8th grade. Students would create their own videos, and then they would pull them up on our projector, and they would all answer each other's questions. So it's a pretty cool thing. So not only can the teacher create an EdPuzzle, so can students. Students can create, but they call them projects. So students can create projects and then they can share those projects out, which is really, really nice. Just recently, something that's really cool, if you use Screencastify, so Screencastify is your screen recording tool of choice. When you're done, your screencast is over, you press stop, it goes to the editing page. One of the export options now is straight to EdPuzzle. So you used to have to like save the video and then upload it to EdPuzzle. Now you have the option to export your screencasted videos right to EdPuzzle, to your content, so then you can add questions in, so they communicate really well. So for that Google cohort I did this summer, I would create the video in Screencastify, and then instead of exporting it somewhere else, I just pressed the button that sent it to EdPuzzle, and it was done for me. So that was really cool. Let me go back to that slideshow real quick and make sure. So this is what your gradebook will look like. Now, the example I showed you, the student hadn't completed anything yet, but once your students do start to complete, you'll see their name right here. Now, I blocked off the names because these were actual students. The total score out of 100. And then this is that part I was telling you about. It tells you how much time they actually spent on like average of their assignments. And then these are all the individual assignments and what they got for that, that piece, which is really cool. Another thing, there is an EdPuzzle Chrome extension. So if you add that Chrome extension, you'll see at the bottom of YouTube, this button will appear. So if you're watching a YouTube video and you're like, oh, I want to put this in EdPuzzle and edit it, and you have that extension, you can simply click it and it will take you to EdPuzzle with that video already pulled up, and you can start adding those quizzes in, which is really cool. As I mentioned before, the EdPuzzle certifications, they have all these different certifications, and to get these badges, you have to do training. So it's a nice way to get some PD. I believe, I can't remember for sure because it's been a while since I did it, but I believe you get some type of certificate at the end that you might be able to, you know, share back to your LPDC to get credit based on what you have as your goals. But there's just EdPuzzle level 1 is kind of what we're doing now. And then it goes to a nice one that actually is EdPuzzle and Google Classroom. So it explains more of that integration. EdPuzzle 2, the EdPuzzle Coach. I mean, you could scan through these. There are tons and tons. I mean, it just keeps going. And what's nice is it tells you like how much time each one is going to take. So, you know, this one's a 40-minute just updates, kind of 40 minutes of going over the basics of EdPuzzle. You know, down here, like the EdPuzzle Coach is a little longer because you have to go back through all that level 1, that level 2 to get that certification, but it's only 90 minutes. So I will tell you, I learned the bulk of my information from EdPuzzle by doing these on these professional developments, because when I kind of came across EdPuzzle, I didn't know a whole lot about it, and I didn't have a lot of like people to ask that were using it at the time. So I kind of jumped into this, learned a ton, and now I can't talk any higher about this tool. It's unbelievable. So let me just double check that we went over everything I wanted you to see. Let me go back. I think we covered all the basics of it. That gradebook I was telling you about that I showed you the image, you would click here and that's where you would see that gradebook. Again, my classes are how you get to all your different classes that you have set up, so that you can access, you can import those students, or you can access that code if needed. Content, again, that's like where you're gonna, that homepage basically, where you're gonna see what's trending in the subject you teach, plus all these content channels they have created that you can access, which is really nice. And I think that that's pretty much everything. Please check back on this slideshow if you want more information. The bit.ly for that is right here. So it's bit.ly/EdPuzzleATC. The E, the P, the A, the T, and the C are all capitalized, and it is case sensitive. So do make sure that you do type that in if you're trying to access this slideshow.
And we'll put that on the website too. So if you look in the chat, we added just a quick link there to where we have all the recordings. And so you should see a couple of recordings there from this morning. And then our intent is to put up a link to the slide deck if you want it, link to some resources if available from the presenter. Some of us are just doing kind of a live demo, but where and when we have it available, you'll have the materials there. And then feel free to distribute that as wide as you want. Right, Dan? Dan went away. There he is.
There you go. That's good.
All right, Dan, any other, I didn't have any questions because Dan, you're so thorough in your talks that there's like no crystal clear. Again, EdPuzzle for the Streetsboro team, we are launching the premium version of that. So look for more information shortly. And then Dan obviously is available to you, but we're happy to share across the globe as well. So if you have questions, just get a hold of us. No problem. We'll be happy to share what we know and what we do at Streetsboro. Dan, any parting words from you? Any EdPuzzle wisdoms?
No, I mean, just play around with it. And if you have questions, just send me an email, connect to me on Twitter or whatever. If you have any questions, feel free to send it my way. Again, my biggest piece of advice would be playing around with it and then trying out those certification modules, because you can do one module for 10 minutes, come back to another one the next day. But pretty much everything I said, it will just be a nice kind of like reminder, or if there are things that I totally forgot to say, that those modules will kind of fill in those holes and will help you, learn how to use EdPuzzle to its full advantage.
To its full
potential. That's what I was looking for, not advantage. So.
So that's it for us for our EdPuzzle. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We're going to stop the recording in a little bit, and then we're going to kick you all out, because then it's time for the next session. 1 p.m. we got beautiful data with Google Sheets. That'll be me and nerding out on a spreadsheet for a while. Then Classroom Basics at 2 p.m. With Molly, Parent Communications with Courtney, and then we'll finish out with some Gmail Basics at 4 p.m. So see you in those sessions. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.